All right. All right. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We are here to talk to you all about financial aid for middle-income families. We're excited to bring you this fifth program for our Education Professionals Month as it relates to Countdown to College and helping all of our families and through you wonderful educators with planning, applying, and paying for college. So we have entered the paying piece to make sure everyone kind of has good information on what's going on. Just a couple of reminders. As I said before, this program is being recorded, and we will have all of the recordings, some are already there, on our CFNC YouTube channel. There's a playlist dedicated to this series. And for attending, everyone will be given emailed CEU certificates. At some point next week, you will receive those. So we've got those housekeeping items. And then make sure you all are visiting cfnc.org/C2C for all of the up-to-date information for the Ed Pro sessions, for student sessions that we'll have, and then for the list of colleges that are waiving, that will opt to waive fees, and that list will be released on October 1st. So lots of good information there, okay? All right, so if you have questions as we go throughout this program, please feel free to put them in the Q&A and we'll get them handled. I'm happy to have Neftali Cabrales here with us from the North Carolina State Education Assistance Authority, and she is going to be sharing information with you all as sort of like a train-the-trainer piece to this so that you all have some information, and I'm going to let Neftali kick it off and talk about financial aid for middle-income families. Thank you for being here, Neftali.
Yes, April, thank you. Happy to be here. And hello, everyone. Good afternoon. We're excited to have you all here. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and show you the PowerPoint presentation. Just making sure you can see it. Perfect. All right, so how to pay for college and strategies for middle-income families. Like April said, my name is Neftali Cabrales, and I am with the North Carolina State Education Assistance Authority. We always like to just give a quick overview in case you haven't heard of us and you're not familiar, but we are the state agency that helps North Carolina students plan and pay for their education, and we provide the CFNC service, so I'm sure you're all familiar with it, but students are able to apply to college, send their transcripts, have access to a scholarship portal specifically for North Carolina students. They're able to get information on how to fill out the residency determination. They have access to career exploration as well as information on the 529 savings plan. So with that, I'd like to remind you all that it is very common for students to need financial aid to be able to pay for college. So we know that 4 out of 5 college students receive some form of aid. And so it's totally normal for students to rely on aid to be able to pay for their education. There are 3 types of students/families that we often encounter. So we have those who are self-funders. So those are families that with their income, they're able to pay for their students' education. We also have those who are high need, but also have high support through grants and through scholarships. And then we have that what might feel like sometimes as that forgotten middle. So these are students that might make whose families might make a little bit too much to qualify for some of that need-based aid, but they still don't have enough to be able to cover the cost of tuition and room and board and all the costs of college on their own. So this is kind of like the 3 categories, and today we're going to be focusing on that forgotten middle. So the 3 main ways to pay for college are going to be through family funds, financial aid, which comes from the federal, state, and college level, and gap funds. And we will break these down and go into each of these categories in this presentation. So starting off with family funds. Family funds are going to include things like personal wages, gifts from friends and family, savings, and personal loans that that family is able to take out. So it's really important to note that a lot of students do rely on family to pay for college. So this is a report from Sallie Mae, and we are able to see that for the 2021 academic year, about 45% of how students paid for college was through parent income and savings. So this is a big portion of how students are paying for college. So to discuss financial aid, what we'll first just kind of break down financial aid. I know sometimes students or families can be hesitant on applying to financial aid because they think we're only talking about loans, but financial aid includes things like loans, of course, but also it includes grants and scholarships, which is money that does not need to be paid back. It also includes federal work study programs, which is Earn While You Learn. So these are the programs that allow students to have a part-time job, typically at that institution that they're attending, to help them pay for the cost of going to college. So we know that students and families fear taking out student loans, but we always like to show you all this data so that you can relay it back to the families. And is that the use of student loans has been on a 10-year decline. And so it's really good to see that students are using grants and scholarships and other funds to be able to pay for their education, and that it does not solely have to be covered through loans. But to talk about state financial aid, we're going to first talk about some of the opportunities to reduce the cost of college up front. This is going to be key for those students who are worried that they might not qualify for a lot of need-based aid. Cutting down on the cost of college up front is going to be ideal for them. So some of the ways that they can cut the cost of college up front is going to be earning college credit early, so while they are still in high school. So if your high school provides programs like AP courses or IB or dual enrollment, these are going to be a great way for students to be able to get some of those general education credits out of the way while they're still in high school at no cost to them. So this is always great to let students and families know these, especially a lot of schools for dual enrollment don't let students start taking them until their junior year. So it's really good to go ahead that junior year and have that conversation with the students and let them know that this can be a way for them to cut the cost of college upfront. Also, guaranteed transfer and co-admission programs are going to be great to help these students cut the college of cost. So if you're not familiar, these programs are going to be four-year universities that have partnered with local community colleges to allow students a guaranteed pathway into that university. So students are going to start out at the community college that's partnered with the institution, and they're going to complete their first 2 years there. So this means that students are going to be able to save a lot on tuition, but also on housing, room and board, and things like that if their students are able to just commute to that community college. So this is a great way to cut on those costs, but still by participating in these specific programs, students are able to access the resources from that four-year university. So that means that while at the community college, they're still able to get advising from the support at that four-year university. They can access their career center. So if they're interested in looking for internships and things like that, they're able to get that support, as well as accessing the libraries at those four-year universities. And these programs are all going to have different requirements. Some require students to apply during their freshman year of college, but some want students to wait until their second year of college at that community college to apply to the program. So it's really important that students considering this option look into the program earlier on their senior year so they know exactly what the requirements are and how and where they need to go to apply to these programs, where again, these are going to be a great way for students to be able to cut on the cost of tuition and save money on room and board by going to that community college for 2 years and then having guaranteed admissions to that four-year university. So that's what's different between participating in this and just being a normal transfer student that doesn't have that guarantee. Another great way for students to save is if they qualify for in-state tuition to attend a North Carolina public university. So College Board estimates that on average, students attending in-state schools that qualify for in-state tuition are saving $17,000 in tuition. So this is a great amount of money for students to be able to save by just going to an in-state public institution if they are a North Carolina resident and qualify for in-state tuition. So it's really important that students and parents understand the difference between in-state tuition and out-of-state tuition and the benefits of going to a public school versus a private school. Of course, students that are interested in North Carolina Promise schools are also able to save a lot of money in tuition. So if you have a student that does not qualify for a lot of need-based aid, but is interested in one of these 4 institutions, this is going to be a great way for them to be able to save a lot of money in tuition. And even if that student does not qualify for in-state tuition and they have to pay out of state for these 4 institutions, that fee is still a whole lot less than for other colleges. And so the students might be interested in these options for that reason. So for per semester is going to be $500 in state tuition, and out of state tuition is $2,500, which is still saving students a lot of money. So for state financial aid, we also have programs like the 529 savings programs, which is a tax advance savings and investment program. And parents can use this to help cover both for college, but also K through 12 tuition. If they're interested, this is of course something that the sooner the family is able to get started, the better, just because it allows them to have more years for that money to pile up, but it's always great for parents to know this information. Then we also have forgivable loans for service. So this is going to allow students going in demand field here in North Carolina to have their loans forgiven for service. And so it's really important that students check this option out if they do have to take out a loan and they are interested in one of those in-demand positions here in North Carolina, to check this out, because that'll allow them to be able to get their loans forgiven for service and not have to pay them back. But that is still an option if they decide to not work here in North Carolina. So this specific program does not require a student to work in a specific area in North Carolina. It just requires them to be in North Carolina. And so if you know your student is in one of those fields, which is linked here, you can see all of the programs that qualify for this loan forgiveness service. And if they're interested in one of those careers, they're able to apply. And if they get it, they have to be intending to stay here in North Carolina. That's very important in order to have the service be an option for them. So this is really important. If you know that your student needs that help paying for college, it's really good for them to check this out. We also have the NC Assist loans. So this is going to, again, be for those students that need help bridging that gap between financial aid. And we always want to remind families to only take out what they need when it comes to loans, but they can go to ncassist.cfnc.org to find more information about this specific loan program. Next, we're going to cover federal financial aid, and that's going to include things like grants, federal work study, loans, and tax credits. So there are 2 types of education tax credit available for North Carolina families, and that's going to be the American Opportunity Tax Credit and the Lifetime Learning Credit. They're going to have differences about them. So it's really important that families look into it and see which one's going to fit best for their situation. But here in the slides, you are going to be able to get the chart that compares side by side both of these tax credits, and you're going to be able to share that out with your students and family so that they can make the best decisions that's for them. And then we're going to cover college-based financial aid. which is going to focus on scholarships, need-based aid, merit, and of course, if the student has some kind of athletic scholarship, they'll be able to get those straight through the college. So we always want to remind students and families that colleges and universities are the largest source for grants. So here you're able to see that for the 2021 year, institutional grants made up 51% of all grants given out to students. So this is really important for families to know because a lot of times there's a little bit of pushback about applying for financial aid from families because they don't think they're going to qualify for the federal or for the state level aid. But it's really important that we remind them that there is still aid available at the college level. And as you can see for grants, which is money that does not have to be paid back, 51% of those are coming straight from the institutions. So it's really important that families know about this so that they're not leaving money on the table. Gap funding. So this is going to cover things like community scholarships, employer education benefits, and college credits through exam. So for community scholarships, we always ask students to start local. So CFNC.org/scholarships is going to have a scholarship portal that has scholarships only for North Carolina students. So it's a much smaller application pool. And so students have a better chance at getting these rather than some of those really big national ones that have hundreds of thousands of students applying for them. So this is a great place for students to start looking for scholarships. Also, the North Carolina Community Foundation has a lot of scholarships listed on their site as well for students. And then community and civic organizations, as well as local chapters of professional associations, are going to be a great place locally for students to look for scholarships. So a lot of times they'll have scholarships for students going into a specific field. And so it's really important that they know to look in these places for scholarships because, again, oftentimes they go unawarded because students just didn't apply to them because they were focusing on some of those national ones that are more competitive. Then another thing for students to consider and know about is employer education assistance program. So for high school students, sometimes their place of employment is going to have scholarships offered to them because some of the places that have a large amount of their workers being high school students, a lot of times they do have some kind of a scholarship for them. And so it's really important that they're checking and seeing if they have this option. But some of the other options include tuition reimbursement or tuition assistance. And more companies are starting to offer this. So it's really important if you know that your student works to see if through their place of employment, there's any program that's tuition reimbursement or tuition assistance, or if they have a scholarship available for the students. The next thing for students to consider is college credit through examination. So they're able to take the CLEP exam to be able to test that of certain subjects. So the College Board college level examination program is going to give students this option, and they're able to prepare for these exams for free using Modern States, which is linked here to this presentation. Again, you will all get this presentation slides later, and so you'll be able to share these links with your students. But basically, Modern States offers preparation classes to take those CLEP and AP exams. So to give students a good chance of being able to pass those exams, they can take those free courses. And if they complete those free courses, then they also get a voucher that is going to be able to let them take the CLEP exam for free. So it's really important that students know about this option. Again, this is one of those ways that students can cut on the cost of college upfront. But it's really important that students also know that not all colleges and universities are going to accept exam credit. And so they need to check with the institutions that they're planning to attend to make sure that they accept this credit. But also, they probably are going to have a limit of how many of these exam credits they accept. So it's good for students to also know what that limit is if the university does accept them. But there are also other sources that students oftentimes don't think about when it comes to places to find money for college. So I wanted to share with you some of the public service programs that also allow for students to earn money to pay for college. So one of the examples is going to be the AmeriCorps Vista programs. So they have the Siegel AmeriCorps Education Award, which is going to be great for students to either repay student loans or to pay for future education expenses. And they have a ton of different programs. So it's really important for students to go on their site to see what programs they have. And some they are able to do out of high school, some they'll have to wait until they've earned their degree to be able to participate. But basically, through community service, the students are able to earn an education award, and they can do this for up to 2 years. And that award can be used to either repay loans that the student took out or for future education expenses. So it's really, really important that students are looking at options um, for funding outside of the traditional financial aid, such as these public service programs, because they are great to, again, help those students that might not meet those need-based requirements. Also, there are job readiness programs. So here in North Carolina, there's a program called Europe. And here they only have one location, which is in Charlotte. But it offers free job training for participants, and they're also able to earn an educational stipend throughout the program. And participants can make progress towards a college degree at a participating community college tuition free while they're getting this free job training. And they also have access to internship opportunities. So it's really important that students are looking at programs such like this if they are in their area, because it helps them get job training and it also gives them the opportunity to complete college credits for free. So for military options, if a student is not, if a student's interested in going into the military, but they do not want to go and enlist right after college, if they still want to be able to experience that more traditional college life, they are able to do ROTC programs. So ROTC programs are offered at more than 1,700 colleges and universities, and they allow participants who commit to serve in the military after graduation to receive a scholarship that covers education costs. Each branch is going to have its own take on what the program looks like and requirements and things like that. But again, this is a great option if a student is planning in the future on going into the military, but they first want to be able to experience that traditional college life. These are going to be a great option for them. And then it's important also for students to understand or know about GI Bill education benefits. So for those students who decide to enroll in the military right after high school, they're going to be able to get the GI Bill education benefits. So they can use these while being active duty or once they exit the military, and it can cover 36 to 48 months of education benefits. So it's really important that students know about this too and that they know the difference on having to be active duty or a veteran, or the difference between an ROTC program. So hitting savings and better outcomes. So it's really, really, really important to stress to students that some of the decisions that they make prior to going to college and while in college can affect how much their degree is going to cost them. So some of the sneakier costs that students can acquire can be from tuition because they decided to change their major later in the game. And so now they're having to stay in school longer take even more credits. And so it's really important that they understand that changing their major can add additional courses, and that can not only put them behind on their graduation timeline, but it can also be very costly. And so it's really important that they know about the resources on cfnc.org that they can take to be able to know more about their skills and their interests and what careers are good for those, just to try to avoid changing majors while in college. Also, it's really important that students understand the difference in just being a full-time student and what they need to do in order to graduate on time. So here in this flyer that you're able to have access to once you get the slides, you can put it up in your office or at the school, just so students are aware. And is that just taking 12 credits is not going to make them graduate in 4 years. So although that is a full-time status, it will not allow the student to complete all of the requirements. If they don't have prior credit going into college, of course, and unless they take summer classes. So if a student is going into college not having any prior college credit and only takes 12 credits, they're not going to graduate in that 4 year time. It's actually either going to take 12 credit hours and summer courses, or it's actually going to take 15 credit hours a semester for them to graduate within that 4 year, if, of course, they don't have any prior credits going into it. So a lot of times students don't realize this, and they think that just because they're taking 12 credit hours and they're a full-time student, that they're all set to graduate on time. So it's really, really important that students know this. And for this report that you'll have linked here, you're able to see that with only taking 12 credits, students tend to pay about 20% more for their degree because they're having to stay at that institution longer. So not only is that affecting tuition, but that's also affecting the cost of room and board, having to live there longer, transportation costs, and things like that. Next, it's also really important that students understand that they're able and that they should check out the statistics for the school. So we always love to recommend college scorecard for students to visit so that they're able to find out more information about the institution that they're going to make sure that it is a good fit and a good investment for them. So here they're able to track the success of a school in many different areas. So one of them is with graduation rate. It will allow the student to see for that specific school or schools that they have selected what their graduation rate is. It also allowed them to see average annual cost as well as the median earnings of students graduating from that institution. But they're also going to be able to see the percentage of students that are taking out loans to get their degree from these institutions. They're also able to see what a typical loan payment looks like. And they're also going to be able to see the median total debt after graduation that students have from graduating from these particular institutions that they're interested in. So this is really important for them to consider. And then also, what I think is most important that they're able to see is they're able to see repayment rates. So if a student knows that they're going to have to take out loans, they're able to see at what rate the other students who took out loans from these institutions are able to make progress on those loans and are able to pay them off. So if they see that a school has a really low rate of students that are able to pay off their loans, the student might, want to reconsider whether that's the right school and the right fit for them. So just to wrap up, we discussed the three main ways to pay for college, and that included things like family funds, which again are things like savings, gifts from family and friends, wages, and personal loans. We also have financial aid at the federal, state, and college level, which include things like the Pell Grant, other grants, federal work study loans, and tax credits. and the GI Bill. For state, includes things like in-state tuition, early college credits, state scholarships, forgivable education loans or service, 529 savings, and the NC Assist loans. And then you also have aid at the college level through scholarships and grants. And the last one that we discussed was GAP funds, which were again those local community scholarships, employer education benefits, and college credit through exams. And now I will open it up for questions. I will stop sharing my screen.
Thank you. Let's see what we got coming in here. Okay, so the questions that have come in, I've been able to kind of answer if we've gone through some of them, you know, with obviously it's been recorded. We'll share it with everyone. You'll get a copy of the slides. I did have a question. I was wondering if you could clarify for everyone on here, just to make sure everyone's on the same page, cost of attendance versus just listing tuition.
Yeah, so tuition, of course, is just going to be covering the tuition, so the classes and those it could be tuition and books, you know, those books in there as well. But you can have on the total cost of attendance, you're going to have things like room and board, you're going to have things like transportation, meal plans. Students need to eat. Sometimes I don't think about that being part of the cost of college, but that definitely is part of the cost of college. Again, you're going to have things like transportation. So if the student is going to live in the opposite part of the state and they're going to have to drive home, or they're going to want to fly home, that's going to add a cost. And so total cost of attendance is going to include everything that goes into being a college student, not just how much the classes cost, which is tuition.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That's why sometimes your students will have, not everyone has the same exact cost of attendance, right? It's a good average of what it'll cost to go to one of those institutions for 1 year, because I might choose a major that has a lot of supplies that I need. I might be in the medical field, right? And I may have more supplies than Neftali, who perhaps has chosen to major in English, right? And not that they won't have supplies, they surely will, but they'll be different, and they might have different costs. So it definitely kind of depends here. Okay, so I'll ask one more question here, and then I think I've got the questions handled for the most part. If you guys want to send some more questions in, please feel free to do so. So if I'm an educator listening to this session, what would be my next step? So perhaps I've listened in, I'm listening live, or I'm listening to it later. I got some basic information for, you know, financial aid for middle income families. What would you suggest, Neftali, that they do with this information is like a next step?
Yeah, I mean, of course, as soon as we can get this in the hands of students and families, the better. And so I would say the next step is definitely just reviewing those resources. If you already have families that have come to you saying that they're worried, they're stressed about how to pay for college, I would definitely send them some of these resources, you know, making sure that for your next financial aid presentation that you're planning at the school, making sure that you take copy and paste, if you need to, some of these slides into there that explain the difference of qualifying for in-state tuition and the difference in that and the savings that you can have versus going to a private school if you qualify for in-state tuition. Making sure that they understand some of those alternative programs that we discussed that allow students to earn an education award by participating in them, making sure that those are an option. And of course, you know, making sure that they understand local scholarships versus national scholarships and the chances of their students getting those. And the fact that a lot of those smaller community scholarships sometimes go unawarded because students aren't looking for them and they aren't applying. And so that would be definitely the next step. See if you already know students and families looking for this information and share it out with them. And then see what information you can take and incorporate for your next financial aid night so that you make sure that you're sharing this out with students.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And if you guys are thinking about different speakers to come in and talk to some of your families, you know, obviously we've got our associate outreach directors, but don't forget about who is in your region, who's in your back door. You know, you've got your, you know, you've got a community college in your county, very likely, or a county, you know, next to you, and they have a financial aid office, and they've got folks that can kind of help if you need some help with that. And also, you know, you may have college advisors in your school. You may have financial aid advisors, Gear Up, Trio, College Advising Corps. So you've got some good resources in your area that can help both in English and in Spanish to provide some of this great information to you. And then for some of you, you've been on enough programs and you've done enough of these and you've listened really good today, and you're going to have the PowerPoint and such that you may feel confident just distributing some of this information. Right now, the FAFSA is anticipated to open on December 1st. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So if you're considering planning a FAFSA completion event, you are probably safer doing that after December 1st, and definitely into, you know, January and February. So I think those are great next steps. Everyone, I think, has got some good marching orders. Anything else that you wanted to add, Neftali? I don't have any other questions that have come in.
No, I think that was it. I mean, the only thing we always try to stress to families, especially those that know that they don't qualify for that need-based aid. A lot of times, you know, you mentioned FAFSA, and those families tend to not want to fill out the FAFSA. And so we always encourage them to anyway, because again, as we saw, and you'll have those slides, a lot of those grants are coming from institutions for students. And so if they aren't filling out the form, they're not going to be able to get some of those institutional grants, because they'll still use the FAFSA to see which students to award that to. And so even if a family does not qualify for the Pell Grant, that does not mean that they are not going to qualify for institutional grants. So it's really important that they know that difference, so that they you know, don't leave money on the table that their student might qualify for.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it. We really appreciate you joining today to talk through this. And everyone listening, keep an eye and ear out, because February is Financially Awareness Month, and SCAA will be doing some programming. They usually do a series during the month called How to Pay for College, or How to Pay series, and there'll be some more programs happening then that will also be geared towards students and families that you can help advertise. And then SCAA will typically do a line by line for you all for the new year, when the new year for the new FAFSA comes out. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. We'll be working on making sure we list all of their programs on CFNC. So you'll want to go to cfnc.org/events, and you should see some programming there. So there'll be some more kind of coming out for you all to help support you as you're supporting your students and your families and communities through the financial aid process. Well, thank you so much. I do want to make sure I mention that October 2nd at 10 a.m. we will be doing our final Education Professionals Month program on residency determination service. So we'll have some guest speakers there to provide you all with some information on RDS and some updates and some ideas and thoughts to kind of hopefully for you all to use with your families, as you're just kind of helping them through the process and making sure they have some information. And then Countdown to College officially kicks off October 1st, and I would encourage you to tell your students to visit cfnc.org/events and cfnc.org/C2C, because we have lots of student sessions that will begin in October, and we're excited to continue this month and work with you all. You guys will get a survey as well. We encourage you to complete it so we can, you know, always make sure that we're staying on target with all of the information. Well, thank you all so much for attending. We really appreciate it. And you will get CEUs for the next week. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and into the weekend. Thank you all so much for joining. And thank you, Neftali, for being here today. Wonderful. Bye, everyone. Have a great weekend.